Temperature regulation in birds. So birds are endothermic, which is the same as mammals. This means that they do not rely on outside sources of heat to warm them up. They can do all of that within their bodies. So they also have their feathers, which provide them with extra insulation. So they can trap air in these feathers, which will give them more heat. And then for marine birds specifically have these preen glands at the base of their tail. These preen glands provide the birds with oil, which the oil is then applied to the rest of the bird's feathers by the bird itself with the beak. So have a look at this video where we watch the penguin doing that.
Penguins are the species that are adapted to very cold water, so in order to survive those very low temperatures, they need to be fully waterproof. What they do is they have a special gland just at the beginning of the tail. It's called the uropygial gland, and it's basically like a big pimple that produces fat. So what they do, and you will probably see them on the icebergs and just on land, what they do is they just go with the bill and they just squeeze that gland, then they take some part of that oil and they just smear it all around all their feathers. They can be doing that for hours and hours because they really need to be fully and completely waterproof.
So birds don't really have to osmoregulate specifically because they have waterproof skin, but some marine birds do have special salt glands in their nostrils, which can help them get rid of excess salt that they take in with their food. Otherwise, excretion by all birds is dealt with through their kidneys, which are very efficient. Humans also have kidneys, and just don't forget that they also have a cloaca. So they still don't have a reproductive area and an anus, so the cloaca forms their reproductive area and their anus as one. All right, so the last most important life strategy is reproduction. So reproduction, all birds lay eggs, so that means that they are oviparous. They also have internal fertilization, so the sperm and the egg fuse inside the animal's body, and then they lay eggs which have large yolks, have an amniotic sac or amnion, and a waterproof shell, which is usually made from calcium carbonate. Right, so for the last bit, I'd like you to watch this little video. It's only a part of it, so please start the video from the 14:07 minute mark. This basically will explain to you the difference between precocial birds versus altricial birds. Most marine birds are altricial birds, which means that they do require some sort of parental care before they can go out into the world.
Egg or not in an egg, what happens after the animal comes out of its egg or out of its mother? How do they develop? And so the development stage is either going to be a precocial one or altricial. Let's look at the precocial first. And so that's the example running down the left-hand side. Animals that are born with a precocial strategy means that they are born ready to go. You will notice my example here is of a little chicken. You will see that it has its fur, it's like fluffy down feathers. It can stand, it can see, it can move around, it can find food. Does it follow its mother around? Yes, for a limited amount of time and protection, but that little baby chicken is free to roam around as it pleases. On the other hand, you have altricial development, and this is where animals are born blind, naked, which means they have no hair, no fur. And you can see that on this side with this example of this kind of bird, you'll see that they don't have their eyes open. They don't have any feathers yet. They're in a nest. They can't walk. They can't fly. And so they are very reliant on their parents to provide them with food and protection. Both of these strategies are dependent on the resources available to those species. As always, I like to end off my lessons with a terminology recap. Now, you can use all of these words for your flashcards, which is the best way to study. Now, we looked at types of fertilization. Internal fertilization happens inside of the female and it ensures that the sperm cell meets the egg, whereas external fertilization happens on the outside of the female. And in order to make up for the fact that we might not ensure sperm meet the egg, we make many, many, many eggs to make up for that. We then looked at the developmental options, the way in which the embryo is going to develop. And we looked at ovipary. Ovipary is when a hard-shelled egg is laid outside of the female body, and we call this egg the amniotic egg. The amniotic egg has the chorion, the amnion, the allantois, and the yolk, each providing a different nutrition or a waste function for that embryo as it develops.